What's going on, everybody? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons to buy the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G. Now, as always, if you end up wanting to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So to start off, my first reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G is the camera. Now with this phone, we got a 13 megapixel selfie camera, which in general, compared to a much higher end device of course, it's not really that impressive, but overall for most people, I do think it will be plenty good enough. To give you an idea of what it can do, here's a picture taken with the selfie camera, and in general, as you can probably tell, it is a pretty decent quality photo. Now again, if you have really high expectations, maybe you're coming from an older flagship phone or something like that that is gonna have really high photo quality, then in that case, this might not seem too impressive, but for what it is, keep in mind this phone is under $200 full price, and I do think that considering this, the photo quality we get here is definitely decent. Now aside from the selfie camera, on the back here, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. And keep in mind for video, this phone does have a max recording quality of 1080p in both the rear and front cameras, so no 4K here unfortunately, but considering this is more of an entry level phone, in fact, I believe it's Samsung's lowest end 5G phone, I'm not really that surprised. But despite not being able to record 4K videos, the camera features here are really good. One thing I really do appreciate here is that with this phone, again we are getting a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and compared to the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G, the predecessor, this is an improvement because for whatever reason, despite the 4G version of the A14 having an ultra wide camera, the 5G didn't, and same thing goes for the A13 5G. For some reason in this line of phones, they left the ultra wide camera out of the 5G model, but finally in 2024 with the A15 5G, we are actually getting an ultra wide camera here, which in my opinion really makes a complete camera setup. At this point in 2024, I feel like pretty much every phone should have an ultra wide camera. I mean, it's not really that crazy of a feature, so I am definitely glad to see that here. In addition to this, the photo quality with the main camera is really good too, which considering this is a 50 megapixel camera is probably not surprising, but overall if you are looking for a super affordable phone, but you still want to be able to take some nice photos, you're really not going to go wrong with the A15 5G. Now to give you an idea of what it can do, here's some pictures taken with the A15 5G, and in general for what it is, again, I do think the photo quality here is pretty good. Like I said before, if you are coming from a much higher end device, then chances are you might want to get something a bit higher end than this, because after all, despite being good for what it is, the A15 5G is still very much an entry level phone. But I do think for the average user, for things people are typically taking photos for on their phones, the camera we get with this device will get the job done. Now my second reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G is the storage. Now with this phone, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so compared to its predecessor that only had 64, at least in the US carrier version, this is definitely a nice improvement. Now don't get me wrong, at this point in 2024, 128GB, while not being bad by any means, it's still not really a super crazy impressive number, but again, considering this is more of an entry level device, I feel like most people getting a phone like this are probably not going to be doing a ton on it, and even if you are, I mean, if you have a bunch of apps and games and stuff like that, 128GB is still going to take a lot to fill up. And if you're taking lots of photos and videos and things like that, again, keep in mind, this phone does have microSD card expansion, so you can always offload your photos and videos and even stuff like music onto a microSD card, and this definitely will make a difference. So if you are looking for a really affordable phone, but storage is more of an issue for you, the A15 5G will be a great choice. Now my third reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G is the display. With this phone, we're getting a decently large 6.5 inch 90Hz Super AMOLED display. So yeah, at 6.5 inches, it's not like huge or anything, but I do think a 6.5 inch display is going to be plenty good enough for most people, so I really have no complaints there. And with the Super AMOLED, we are getting really good image quality compared to something like an IPS LCD, for example. A Super AMOLED is going to be, first of all, a bit brighter. The colors are a bit more vibrant, so if you're doing stuff like watching videos or playing a game, for example, the image quality is going to be a bit nicer, so definitely a good thing. And then with the Super AMOLED compared to an IPS LCD, the viewing angles are going to be a bit better too. So if you're maybe outside in the sun, for example, or really in any kind of bright area, a display like this will be a bit easier to see. We're also getting a 1080p resolution here, so the image is nice and sharp and clear. And again, we do have a 90Hz refresh rate, so the movement on the screen is a bit faster and smoother, making the phone feel a bit more premium to use. Granted, the 90Hz refresh rate has been around since 2021 or 2022 when the A13 5G came out. On this specific line of phones anyway, I mean, higher refresh rates have been around forever really. So it's not like it's anything new, but still compared to lots of phones like this, it's not uncommon for an entry-level 5G phone to have only a 60Hz display. And while it of course doesn't make the biggest difference in the world, it is definitely a nice touch. So yeah, in general, the A15 5G really has a great display, and honestly, when it comes to display quality and your overall experience when you're consuming content, I feel like really the only thing that might leave a bit more to be desired is the size. And again, I personally feel like a 6.5-inch display is plenty large enough for most people, but if you are someone who wants like a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra type display, then of course you are going to want to get something else. But for everyone else, if you are looking for a phone that has a really nice display, you definitely won't go wrong with this phone. Now my fourth reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G is the headphone jack. Now, this is a feature that on one hand, if you're coming from maybe an older phone, for example, it might be kind of an expectation. And for some people, if you're using wireless headphones, it might not even matter. But I will say, I was honestly surprised that this phone still has one, because at this point in 2024, Samsung has been getting rid of headphone jacks in most of their phones now. And while I personally feel like it's kind of disappointing, because when it comes to budget phones, not everyone wants to use wireless headphones, so having that headphone jack is definitely a nice option. But in devices like the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, for example, they have been getting rid of headphone jacks, and I was kind of thinking that at this point in 2024, they wouldn't have them in lower end phones either. But luckily, as you can see again, with this phone, that's not the case. So if you are looking for a phone that has a normal headphone jack, then you won't be disappointed here. And then finally, my fifth reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G is the software. Now with the A15 5G, this phone does come with Android 14, which, considering this is the newest version of Android and this is a brand new phone, I'm not really that surprised. But at the same time, there are still plenty of phones out there that only have Android 13. And while obviously, I mean, we just got into Android 14, so it's not like Android 13 is super outdated, but if you are someone who cares about having the latest version of Android, then this phone will be a great choice for you, especially since Samsung did confirm that it will be getting 4 years of updates and then 5 years of security updates too. So with this phone, you can expect to get Android 15, 16, 17, and 18. So yeah, if the software is important to you, the A15 5G will be a great choice. But those were 5 reasons why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G. In general, despite not being really that different from the A14 5G in most ways, if you are looking for a really affordable 5G phone that has decent performance, a really nice camera, plenty of storage, a great display, up-to-date software, and you really want to maximize the value you're getting for the money without spending a ton, then I do think the A15 5G is definitely worth considering. Now once again, if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.